In 1994, 2 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, a series of classified KGB documents were quietly smuggled out of Moscow and sold on the black market in Prague. The seller was a former intelligence analyst named Gregor Petrovich Sokolov, a disgraced operative who vanished days after the exchange. Among the documents was one file with no official seal, no cover sheet, no declassification code, just a torn folder marked Incident 12-504, 12 terminated. Inside were blurred photographs, bloodstained maps, and a single audio reel labeled only in pencil. Moros, Eastern Line, Winter 1944. This audio was translated and digitized by a German-born archivist named Klaus Heidemann, who disappeared from his hotel room in Warsaw just 1 week after uploading the file to a closed-access conspiracy server. All known copies were scrubbed from the internet by 1996, except one. The following is a transcript of that final file. No names remain. No witnesses alive. Leaked from top-secret KGB archive. Incident file 12-504. Translated transcript, recovered from classified Soviet-era audio logs. Identity redacted. I was 19 when it happened, old enough to follow orders, too young to understand what they meant. We were deep in the Eastern Front. Snow covered everything, even the corpses. Especially the corpses. No official name for the region, just coordinates scratched onto damp paper, delivered by a commander who hadn't been seen in over a month. They dropped us in mud and frost, and told us to hold position. That was it. Hold the trench, wait for resupply, and pray the Soviets were just as starved as we were. But prayers didn't work out here. Not even bullets did. It started like most deployments, chaos, yelling, heavy boots scrambling over ice-crusted earth. But it didn't stay loud for long. Within a week, the shouting stopped. The engines stopped. The gunfire faded into memory. Then came the real enemy. Silence. That kind of silence that makes you feel like the air around you is listening. We were left with nothing. No food. No warmth. No sound but the wind. The rations were gone within 5 days. After that, we boiled snow. Ate what we could. Some ate leather. A few stripped bark off trees. One man, Weber, tried to eat his gloves. They found him chewing on his own fingers by day 9. There were 20 of us in the beginning. All German. But after 2 weeks, we stopped counting. Some were dead. Some had simply vanished. Some crawled away to die alone in the forest where their screams wouldn't keep us awake. My name doesn't matter, but his does. Otto Stein, my best friend. The only one who still talked like we'd ever get out. He was always cold, always shaking, always mumbling about home. But Otto never broke. When the firewood ran out, he lit his own boots to give us 5 minutes of heat. When my hand froze around my rifle one night, he pissed on it to thaw it out. We laughed, genuinely laughed. He was the last thing keeping me from slipping into the snow and not coming back. We were stationed opposite a Soviet trench, maybe 200 meters away, close enough that we could hear them cough, sometimes sing. We didn't fire on them. They didn't fire on us. Not because of orders, because none of us had the strength. There were nights when I swear I heard one of them crying. Not sobbing, just low, steady crying like a man holding a photograph he couldn't afford to remember. It was late January when Otto heard the first one. It was about 3 in the morning. No moon. Wind sharp enough to cut skin. I was asleep, my back against the wall of the trench. He shook me awake. Hard. You hear that? He whispered. I told him no. I was still dreaming of heat. It sounded like a woman screaming, he said. I laughed. There haven't been women in miles. His face didn't change. He just stared out into the black. That wasn't no fox, man, he muttered. It sounded like it came from behind the Soviet trench. The next night, it came again. This time I was awake. It didn't sound like a woman. It didn't sound like any human I'd ever known. It was long, wet, like the scream of something being eaten while still alive. It started high like a child, and ended low, like it came from underground. We all heard it, even the Soviets. They started yelling. One of them fired into the forest. Another shouted something back in Russian. But then silence again. Not scared silence. Resigned. Like they'd heard it before. The next morning, we found something strange. A Soviet helmet lying in the no-man's land between our trenches. No blood. No tracks. Just the helmet, still warm, like it had only been dropped moments earlier. We didn't say a word, just looked at each other, and then looked at the forest behind their line. By the fourth night, the scream was closer. It echoed straight through the earth. You could feel it vibrating the metal bolts in your boots. One of our men, Roth, stood up mid-scream and shouted, "Shut it up! For the love of God, shut it up!" He climbed out of the trench with his rifle and started firing into the trees. We heard one shot, then nothing, not even a scream. We waited until dawn, found his rifle, his helmet, and a trail in the snow, a dragging trail, like something had pulled him away. Otto stopped sleeping after that. He just sat there, staring at the trees, rubbing his hands together so fast they bled. He started talking to me less, started muttering to himself more. "The Russians know something," he said one morning. "They're not scared. They're used to it." I didn't want to believe him, but I was starting to think the same. They never panicked during the screams, never fired unless someone disappeared. They were expecting it, or worse, accepting it. That night, I saw one of them standing in the open, no weapon, arms at his sides, facing the forest. He didn't move, didn't flinch when the screams came. He just stared, like he was waiting for something. I turned away. When I looked back, he was gone. No shots, no noise, no blood, just gone. Otto started sleeping with his rifle aimed at the tree line. Not at the Soviets, at the forest. He stopped shaving, stopped eating. He told me one night, "I don't think it's human what's out there, and I don't think it cares what uniform we wear. They say war strips you down, tears out your softness, burns away the parts of you that feel. But in those trenches, we didn't burn. We froze, bit by bit, thought by thought. By week 3, I wasn't a soldier. I was just a shell with a rifle, staring at trees, waiting for screams." Otto stopped talking completely by then. He'd sleep with one eye open, if he slept at all. He didn't blink much anymore. His skin was raw from the cold, and he'd chew at his knuckles until they bled. We weren't dying from bullets. We were rotting from the inside. We kept hearing the screams, and they were changing. They didn't echo the way they should. Sometimes they sounded close, then far, then close again, like they were circling us. One night, it screamed from behind our trench. That was the first time anyone opened fire without hesitation. 15 rounds into the dark, we heard something move. Something big. Branches snapped like bones. Then silence again. The Soviets didn't shoot. Not that night. They just stood there across from us, flashlights flickering, watching us panic. One of them had binoculars, not aiming them at us. He was scanning the woods, looking for something. That same night, Otto came back into the trench holding something. His face was white. He didn't speak. He handed it to me without a word. It was a bone, still wet, polished clean on one side, like it had been sucked dry. But the shape, it wasn't from any animal I'd ever seen. Too thin, too long, a finger bone. Only not human. The frost came down heavier over the next few days. It turned the mud to ice and the dead into statues. Rats gnawed at them anyway. We were out of morphine, out of food, out of cigarettes, out of time. Then came the blood. It was scattered across the snow one morning, between our trench and theirs. Like something had dragged a corpse halfway through no man's land and then changed its mind. Chunks of flesh. A boot, a hand, curled like it had tried to claw something before dying. No one said anything. We just stared. One of the younger boys threw up. Another started crying. Otto didn't move. He just stared at the hand for over an hour. Then he whispered, "They're not killing to eat." I asked him what he meant. He looked at me and said, "They don't take all of it, just some, like it's sending a message." 3 more disappeared that week. 2 Soviets, one from our side. Always the same pattern. Gone without a sound, just drag marks. Sometimes blood, sometimes not. Once, a man vanished from inside the trench. His boots were still there, still laced up. We started sleeping in shifts, but no one really slept. We just blinked slower. It was the 8th night when Otto broke. We were sitting back to back, sharing what little body heat we had left. That's when he said, "They took my brother in Poland." I didn't know he had a brother. 1939, he continued. A farm, middle of nowhere. Nighttime. I listened in silence. He was out feeding the animals. There was a sound in the barn. My father found only blood. And this symbol. He pulled something from his coat pocket. It was a folded, torn scrap of canvas. Charcoal markings. A circle with jagged lines branching out from it, almost like antlers. "I've seen this before," Otto said. "In the trees, behind the trench." It was burned into the bark. He looked at me hollow-eyed. "We're not fighting a war anymore," he said. "We're walking into someone else's territory." The next night, I lost him. It started like always. A scream in the dark, but this time close. Otto jumped up before I even moved. He had that look, like something inside him had snapped. He said nothing, just climbed out of the trench with his rifle and started toward the tree line. I shouted his name. No answer. I followed. I remember the cold, the snow crunching under my boots, my breath like smoke, the trees looming above like prison bars. Then, I saw it. Not it. Them. Figures. At least 3. But not moving like men. They moved like they were being dragged by strings. Limbs too long. Too flexible. Their heads twitched at odd angles, like they were listening to sounds I couldn't hear. And in their arms, "Otto!" He screamed my name once. Just once. Then they pulled him into the dark. Gone in seconds. I raised my rifle, but I couldn't shoot, because just behind them, I saw more eyes. Dozens. Blinking in and out of view. Watching. I stumbled back to the trench. No one believed me. No one wanted to believe me. That night, we sat in silence. Listening. Waiting. Otto never came back. The next morning, I found something at the edge of the trench. His journal. Pages torn, soaked in blood, but readable. The last thing he wrote. "They only come when we're divided. They only take those who lose hope." And under it, that symbol, scrawled over and over again, burned into the leather cover with a lighter, like he wanted to make sure someone saw it. There was no sound the morning after Otto vanished. No wind, no birds, no boots, just cold breath and guilt. The sun didn't rise so much as glow behind a wall of pale fog, turning everything the color of ash. It looked like the world had finally died. No one spoke. Not our side. Not theirs. Even the rats were gone. I spent the morning staring at the spot where Otto was taken, where his footprints ended. The blood in the snow had frozen into these long, red vines, stretching toward the forest. No one offered to help me search. No one told me not to. They didn't need to. We all knew what that would mean. Later that day, the silence broke. A single Soviet soldier stepped out of his trench. No rifle, no helmet, just a white cloth in his hand. A white flag. I don't think anyone breathed for a full minute. Then my commander, if you could still call him that, gave me a look. Not a nod, not a command, just a look that said, "If you're gonna die, might as well die doing something useful." So I climbed out of our trench, slowly, hands raised, no weapon, snow up to my knees, my legs shaking, heart pounding. I stopped halfway between the 2 trenches. The Soviets stopped too. We just stood there, 2 ghosts in opposite uniforms, surrounded by blood and silence. Then he spoke, in German. "You hear it too?" I nodded. He looked past me toward the trees. "They took one of ours last night. We found only his tongue." He held up a small bundle, wrapped in cloth. He didn't need to unwrap it. I believed him. A few moments later, another Soviet joined him. Then one of ours joined me. Eventually, there were 12 of us. 5 Germans, 7 Soviets. We stood in a tight circle, rifles slung but not ready, eyes moving constantly. Everyone looked exhausted, starved, shattered, but there was something else in their eyes. Not hate, not anger, relief. The kind of relief you only feel when you realize someone else has seen what you've seen and knows it wasn't just in your head. The Soviet who first spoke, he said his name was Mikhail. He was older than the rest. Balding, his hands shook when he lit his cigarette. He spoke slowly, carefully, as if he were afraid the trees were listening. It started with whispers, then the screams. Now we count fewer every morning. We sent scouts into the woods 3 nights ago. Only one came back. He shot himself in the head before sunrise. Another soldier, his name was Grigory, held up a torn scrap of leather. Burned into it was the same symbol Otto had shown me. The circle, the jagged branches. The Soviet said one word, Moros. I didn't know what it meant then. I do now, but at the time, it just sounded like frost. Like cold. The way he said it, though, it felt like he was naming a god. We all agreed to one thing. Whatever was out there, it wasn't human, and it didn't care about the war. Didn't care about languages or ideologies. It just wanted us divided. So we made a truce, not out of honor, not out of peace, but survival. That night, we left the trenches, all 12 of us, packed what we could, ammo, lanterns, food, what little remained, and we followed the blood trail into the forest. It felt like walking into a mouth. The trees closed around us fast. The light vanished within minutes. We moved slowly, rifles up, eyes scanning everything. The snow was deeper here. Too deep, as if no one had ever walked this way before. After maybe an hour, we found the first sign. A Soviet soldier, strung up in the trees. Not hanging, impaled. Spiked through the chest on a broken branch, arms twisted behind his back, mouth frozen mid-scream. His eyes were gone, not removed, just missing. The snow beneath him was red and steaming. One of the younger Soviets vomited in his scarf. We kept moving. A few hundred meters further, we found another one. A German this time. One of ours. I recognized his boots. His body was bent backwards. So far backwards, his head was touching his heels. His spine snapped like a dry stick. He had something carved into his chest. Not words, just lines. Jagged lines forming the same symbol again. We stopped to argue. Grigory wanted to turn back. Said this was suicide. Said we should dig deeper trenches and wait for spring. But Mikhail just stared at the ground. There is no spring anymore, he said. Not for us. So we pushed on. As we moved deeper, the trees grew stranger. Their bark turned dark, almost black, like it had been burned. Some were twisted unnaturally, coiled around themselves like snakes. We found scratches in the trunks, deep claw marks, some fresh, still bleeding sap. The blood trail split, 2 directions. So we split up, 2 teams of 6. I stayed with Mikhail's group. He seemed steadier. Like someone who'd already accepted he wasn't going home. We moved left. The trail took us down a slope, deeper into the woods. The air grew heavy, like breathing through a wet cloth. Then we heard it. A scream. Close. Then another. Gunshots. From the other team, followed by silence. We ran back up the hill, slipping on roots and ice. When we reached the clearing where we had split, we found only 2 of them. One Soviet, one German, both shaking, bloody, their eyes wide with trauma. They came from under the snow. One of them whispered, hands, teeth, like they were buried there waiting. He wouldn't stop shaking. He just kept repeating the same phrase. The snow is alive. The snow is alive. We moved again. Faster now. No more following trails. We just wanted out. But the forest had changed behind us. Paths we'd walked were gone. Trees had shifted. The snow was falling heavier now like ash, and it carried with it the scent of blood. That's when we heard the howls. Dozens of them. High, low, all around us. The wolves were coming. The howling came in waves. Not like normal wolves. howls you'd hear in fairy tales or deep woods. This was something else, layered, dissonant, wrong, like voices screaming through broken throats, as if the sounds were being pulled out of them by force. We stopped in our tracks. The wind died. Even the trees seemed to lean in and listen. There were 8 of US left, 5 Germans, 3 Soviets. 2 more had vanished since the last scream. No blood, no footprints, just that heavy, sick feeling in your gut when you know something is watching you. Mikhail raised his hand to signal silence. He knelt, pressing one ear to the ground. I saw the blood drain from his face. He whispered, "They're circling beneath us." Beneath, not around, beneath. We moved as a unit, rifles up, no one blinking. The forest had changed again. It was darker now, though it should have been midday. The snow fell slower, thicker. It landed with the sound of dust. No birds, no wind, only breath and cracking knees and death behind every branch. Then we saw the first one, at the top of a ridge, huge, larger than any natural wolf I'd ever seen. It didn't move, just stared. Its eyes reflected the light like glass, not like an animal, like something imitating one. Its breath steamed in the air, slow and even. And then, it opened its mouth. But it didn't howl. It screamed. We ran. It wasn't a decision. It was instinct. Terror took our bones and made them move. I don't even remember who gave the order. Maybe no one did. We ran down the slope, slipping through snow and branches, ducking low as black shapes darted between trees. They didn't chase us. Not yet. They let us run. We reached a clearing, a sunken patch in the woods, surrounded by crooked trees and ancient stone, like a forgotten altar. We huddled against a dead log, rifles aimed in every direction. Mikhail began loading explosives, claymores, wire mines, frags, whatever he had left. He handed me one. "When they come," he said, "you don't stop firing until your rifle melts." I nodded, felt nothing, just numb, cold, focused. Grigory, the youngest of the Soviets, was whispering to himself, praying maybe, but I don't think he was speaking Russian. Then came the second howl. This one was closer. Another joined it, then another, until the air shook with dozens of them, and from every direction, eyes glowing from behind trees, reflecting off ice, low to the ground, but not all at the same height. Some were higher, much higher. Then they stepped out, 50, maybe more, circling, coordinated, not wild, controlled. I swear to you, they moved like soldiers, like they were being directed, flanking, boxing us in. They weren't just hunting, they were herding. We opened fire first. A burst of rifle rounds tore through the first row of beasts. Some fell, most didn't. They darted forward, leaping with terrifying speed. Claws like daggers, teeth like rusted blades, fur matted with old blood. The clearing became a slaughterhouse. One of our men was ripped in half before he could scream. Another had his throat torn out and kept firing as he dropped. Mikhail set off the first mine. A thunderous blast tore into a group of wolves. But even the ones missing legs kept crawling. They didn't feel pain, or if they did, it didn't matter. Grigory went down screaming, pulled backward into the trees. His voice echoed for 20 full seconds before it stopped. I was firing blindly, screaming, emptying rounds until my fingers bled. A German next to me threw his rifle and pulled a knife. It didn't last 5 seconds. Blood sprayed across my face. Mikhail grabbed me. Fall back. Back to the trench. I hesitated. And that's when I saw it. The Alpha. It stood on 2 legs. Massive. Towering. Covered in gray-black fur with patches of pale, hairless skin. Its skull was elongated, canine, but warped. Like it was grown wrong on purpose. It had hands. Human-shaped, but too long. Too thin. Claws that curled like hooks, and its chest scarred, marked with the same symbol. Burned into it. It didn't howl. It didn't growl. It smiled. A wide, broken smile that split up into its cheeks. Then it walked forward. When I opened my eyes, it was snowing ash. Or maybe it just looked that way. Everything smelled like burned meat and gunpowder. My ears rang. My body shook. I was alive. That was all I knew. For a moment, I hoped I was dreaming, that I was somewhere else. Back in Germany, on a train, in a field, in a hospital. But then I rolled over, and my hand landed in blood-soaked snow. Still warm. And I remembered. The clearing was destroyed. Trees blackened and broken. Bodies, parts of them, littered the ground like rag dolls torn open and discarded. Some were still moving. Not people. Wolves. Twitching. Dying. Or pretending to be. I didn't stop to check. It took me 20 minutes to crawl to the edge of the woods. My rifle was gone. My knife gone. My coat torn. My leg useless. I dragged myself with frozen fingers until I heard voices. Low. Tired. In 2 languages. German. Russian. They'd survived. For others, Mikhail, a German sergeant named Roth, a boy from our side called Adler, and a Soviet named Yura, whose entire arm was gone below the elbow. Just gone. Ripped off clean. They'd tied it off with barbed wire. He didn't scream. He just sat there, rocking back and forth, whispering to himself, blood frozen into his beard. Mikhail looked at me, didn't smile, didn't speak, just nodded. A slow, hollow gesture, like, "You're one of us now." Whatever that meant. We didn't speak for hours. There was nothing left to say. The wolves had retreated. Not all of them died. Some had just stopped fighting. Mikhail swore he saw one kneel before the Alpha before disappearing into the trees. I don't know if he was delirious or honest. At that point, what was the difference? We made a fire. Small. Weak. Just enough to boil snow. There was no food. No morphine. Just half a bottle of vodka in Yura's coat, and a pocket full of dried meat we found on Adler's corpse before he stopped breathing. Mikhail toasted him. Didn't say a word. Just lifted the bottle and poured a splash into the snow. That night, we slept in shifts. But none of us really slept. The dreams were worse than the waking. Otto's face kept appearing in mine. But wrong. His smile too wide. His eyes too deep. At one point I woke up to find Mikhail staring at the fire, tears running down his face. "I saw my daughter," he whispered. But she wasn't my daughter. She had its eyes. We hiked back the next morning. If you could call it hiking. Yura collapsed after the first hour and begged us to leave him. We didn't. We dragged him. Roth used his belt to tie the stump of Yura's arm to his own chest, so he wouldn't bounce so much. Every step felt like being pulled deeper into a grave. We finally reached the edge of the trench 2 days later. It was empty. No guards. No guns. No shouting. Just wind. And bodies. 4 Germans. 6 Soviets. Frozen stiff, eyes wide, mouths open. Some with their weapons still in their hands. Some with their throats open from the inside. No signs of struggle. Just stopped. We collapsed into the dirt, too tired to cry. I think I passed out for a full day. Or longer. Time didn't exist anymore. Eventually, we made a signal fire. Nothing happened. No planes. No supplies. No help. Just the flames. And the screams. Still distant. Still nightly. That's when we found the crate. Buried just under the trench line. Roth tripped over it in the dark. It was metal. Unmarked. Locked tight. We smashed it open with a bayonet. Inside were papers. Typed reports. Photographs. Names. And maps. Mikhail sorted through them while the rest of US watched. He turned pale. The files were in Russian. Stamped with the Soviet emblem. Classified tags across every page. And one word, over and over again. Moros. Project Frost. They'd known. They'd known this thing was in the forest. They'd been watching it, feeding it, tracking it, using the war as cover. It wasn't a monster. It was an experiment. Or maybe not. Maybe it had always been there. And they just wanted to see what it would do. Mikhail didn't say anything for a long time. Then he stood. "We weren't fighting each other," he said. "We were feeding it. We were 5 now. 2 Germans. 3 Soviets. It didn't matter anymore. We didn't wear the uniforms like we used to. Just rags, mud, blood, and fear. The flags were gone. The sides were gone. Only the screams remained. And the forest. And the thing beneath it. Mikhail studied those documents for hours. We sat in the frozen trench around a small, cracking fire, listening to the paper rustle between his trembling fingers. They read like a blueprint for madness. Project Moros, Field Reports 1942-1944 classification, state secret. Subject dormant. Reawakening period triggered during extreme cold. Requires sustained exposure to trauma, fear, and dissonance between units. High-value target. Sentient biological anomaly located in Zone 12. Pack structure observed. Alpha-level specimen exhibits adaptive intelligence. There were maps, timetables, names, coordinates. Some of those names we recognized. Commanders, scientists, civilians, all missing. They hadn't vanished because of the war. They'd vanished because they were sent here. We weren't soldiers. We were data points. Tagged, measured, offered. Feeding patterns remain consistent. Engagement not advised. Observation critical. They sent us here to watch it feed. And we played our part. Just fine. That night, Mikhail burned half the documents. Not to hide them, just to stay warm. He kept one page. Just one. A blurry photograph. Black and white. Grainy. It showed a figure. Upright. Enormous. Leaning over a man whose face was frozen in agony. The eyes of the thing glowed, even in black and white. The same eyes we'd seen in the trees. Someone had scribbled a note in the margin. Do not look into its mouth. 3 nights later, it came again. We'd rigged what was left of our trench with mines, barbed wire, and fire traps. A desperate final defense. It didn't matter. They came anyway. The howls began around midnight. By 1, the first mines had gone off. Yura went first, torn apart so fast he didn't even scream. Then came the shadows. Not wolves this time. Something else. They moved upright. Tall. Wrong. Roth tried to hold them back at the north line. We found what was left of him still clutching a flare, his ribs snapped open like wings. It was only me and Mikhail now. We ran, not because we thought we'd survive, but because we wanted to see it. The source, the truth, the thing behind the teeth. We followed the trail of corpses into the forest, back where the first scream had come from. The deeper we went, the less the world made sense. Trees twisted into spires. The snow no longer crunched. It pulsed. The air stank of rot and ozone. Then we found the altar, a pit carved into the earth, bones surrounding it in perfect circles, symbols etched into the frost. And in the center, Otto, or what was left of him. He was on his knees, face turned skyward, smiling. Eyes gone, chest carved open, and standing behind him, it, 10 feet tall, maybe more. A skeletal wolf's skull fused to a man's torso, arms like broken blades. Its mouth wasn't a mouth, it was an opening into something else. A place, a sound, a scream that never ended. Mikhail fell to his knees. I don't remember firing. I don't remember running. Just that I looked too long. I looked into its mouth, and I saw my mother, my village, myself, burning, smiling, calling to me. I woke up in a Russian hospital 3 weeks later. No one believed me. They said I was found alone, frostbitten, unarmed, half dead. The war ended months later. But some nights, I still hear it. The howl that isn't a howl. The scream that's just for me. Years passed. Wars ended. Flags changed. Governments fell. But I never did. I live somewhere quiet now. No phones. No internet. Just woods. Sometimes late at night, I think I hear branches snapping. Sometimes I see eyes in the treeline. But maybe that's just the dark playing tricks on me. That's what I tell myself. Every time. Until the whisper comes. It's not a sound. It's a presence, like breath on the back of your neck. Like memory being pulled out of your skull. A cold that speaks and pulses. That says, You looked. We saw you. We are not done. I keep the one document I managed to hide. A photo, a map, a name. Moros. They never shut it down. They just built walls around it. They gave it new names, new faces, new wars. Because once you feed it, it never forgets the taste. You think this story is over. It isn't. I saw what lives in the frost, and I know it's coming back.